Today I'm going to talk about this idea of surfing without a surfboard, okay? And what it is. I already told you before that there's a way to sit in devotion to God no matter what your spiritual tradition. And sitting in the place of devotion to then choose a point on one side, a point on the other, and then having chosen these 2 points, you've basically set up the equivalent of an old-fashioned scale or a yoke. And then, because you're in the center and the world presents itself to you in all kinds of unique ways that have never ever happened before from the beginning of time, with each new presentation, it invites a lean or a turn away or a bailing, because you'll tend to lean toward what you like and away from what you don't like. And that's accumulatively, that's with all the mind-attended conditions all parading up before you. And so what this spiritual game is you can set up this kind of a scale, which literally does correspond to what the surfer does when they have a foot on one side of the board, a foot on the other, and then they sink their center of gravity between the 2 points in the place between right and left in this example. But what I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, you don't even need to have a surfboard. I'm telling you that you can sit there as an example and surf your place this very moment. How are you going to do that? Well, as an example, when you sit there, you'll feel the sitting bones, right? There's one on one side, one on the other. That's where you meet the chair. And even if you wanted to feel both of those sitting bones evenly over a continued period of time, you'd probably find yourself drifting, sometimes to one side, sometimes to the other. But the cool thing is that this is like an early warning system. It's like a notification that you can trust with absolute certainty, that it lets you know the very instant that you start to depart from this place of devotion out into the outer world to chase the things of the world. But if you can just realize the very instant that you start to lean, then you can bring it back. And then some people will say, well, isn't that an overly physical example? I mean, isn't it supposed to be about the mind, that you train your mind to be in the right place? But I'm telling you that it really does train the mind too, because just check this out. You're sitting there and you feel both sitting bones evenly, okay? But now just put your mind on that sitting bone. Do you see that even simply moving your mind to that side, you feel that side more than the other? And same if you start evenly and then just put your mind on that one, you realize that you feel that one more than the other. So even though you're using the tool of the frame of the physical body to establish yourself in this kind of devotional scale or Christian yoke, if you will, what happens is you're really learning how to move the mind, because when you start to, even if you go out physically more to one side or to the other, you learn that you can simply move the mind, or have the mind be in the place that's spot on. To move the mind, that's perhaps not the best explanation, because wherever you place the mind, it is simply where it is, right? And if it always abides in the sweet spot, then how could you consider that to be moving? Well, maybe in relationship to the external world, it would seem to be moving. Similar to the idea that you can sit in a car on the same place on the seat, and the car can drive all over the frickin' world, just all over the place. But if you consider the place where you're sitting, you sit in the exact same place for the entire trip, while the world around you moves and changes. It's something like that, it's like the idea that you keep your mind on the sweet spot, the place that's not too high, not too low, not too much to the one side and not too much to the other, not too much to the front and not too much to the back. And yet this kind of training will teach you how to find that sweet spot and how to know with certainty when you're in that place. Because if you feel one side more than the other, you can just know that you've leaned out, that you've gone out into the world toiling and spinning instead of choosing the better part, choosing this one good thing, instead of plowing a field and not looking back. So this is devotion. It's when you keep to one thing. And that's worth rubbing my nose over. So, but what I want to tell you, this is something that you might not have caught in some of the other videos that I did, okay? Yeah, you want to sit in devotion, but who's the one that's sitting? Like, where is the one that's sitting? So, if you can practice non-attachment, then in the past you might literally have been somewhat spiritually malformed because, yes, you're here, but if you have, for example, a beautiful automobile that you care very much about, that if somebody scratches that car, it's the equivalent of them scratching you. You care so much about that you're not simply here so as to be able to plow the field in this place between here and here. This is the way to go through the straight gate. This forms the straight gate, basically. And this corresponds to like the divine feminine, too, because, and then even in Catholicism, they say, there's the divine mother, and they say, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. That there's a place of devotion that the devotee will seek and find and abide in, no matter how the external world would present itself. And normally a person will be kind of floating, It's like, yeah, I want to practice all these things, but where the heck do I start? I'll read one scripture for a while, and then, hey, I got something good out of that. Now I'll read something else. But you see that these are all over the place. There's one here, one there. You need to sink down. You need to have a steady place of devotion to begin with. And that's why there's this idea of where two or more, or two or three are gathered in this place, in the name of this place, there am I in the midst of them. And trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. How's he going to direct your path? Well, you can literally be Johnny on the spot if you learn to set up this kind of a Christian yoke or scale. Now, I've said it before, but yes, where two or more believers are gathered, 2 or 3 believers are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. That, I'm not going to argue with that, but I'm saying it also works if you gather 2 or more points, a point on one side, a point on the other. And there is a place between opposites that because you're sitting in this place in devotion, you're literally in the place between opposites, between, for example, right and left. There's a place as straight as a razor's edge between the two, and because you from that place have chosen something on one side and something on the other, you literally abide in the midst of a changing world, sitting in devotion, and moment after moment, with each new presentation, it's as if every new presentation of life, every new sight, sound, feeling, thought, everything that's new, it continually re-asks this question. Lovest thou this place of devotion, which is often referred to as me in some of the mystical writings and various traditions. I'm not talking about myself here, but in your heart there's a place of devotion. So it's asking this question, lovest thou me more than these? And if you can surf this place between opposites, moment after moment after moment, no matter what the world can present to you, then that's what it means to love God, love the place of devotion which you have given in your heart to God, to love God continually. That's what it means to pray always, to sit steadily in devotion in this place. And so in the beginning, yes, it's true that if you find yourself leaning too much to this side, you could just physically correct the postures to return to this place, and then know with assurance that when you feel both sides evenly, you are, for this consideration, in the sweet spot between the opposites of right and left. You can also choose other points. You can choose K27, or I like spleen 21. But you can choose any 2 points, and in fact, you can even. I did an article and a video on how to use the segments of the fingers of the hands as if they are rosary or prayer beads. And I introduced this way that instead of using just one hand, no, the one that prays the rosary or the prayer beads in devotion, they use both hands, right? So why would you use both hands? Because it opens up the possibility of abiding steadily. Well, you could still do it, but it makes it somehow seem easier to abide steadily in this place between, in this example, the opposites of right and left, to abide steadily here, even when what? Okay, so you start with symmetrical, for example. Let's start here. You start symmetrically, and then there's a prayer that you do here. And through it all, you simply hold to this, abide in this place, and don't lean. And you can simply know that you're not leaning, because you will feel perhaps the sitting bones, where 2 or 3, 2 or more are gathered. There am I in the midst of them. So you got the sitting bones established in steadiness. And then you also establish this, which is simply part of the same thing. And then having these like this, you change only one side, for example. You change this hand to maybe here. And then, so externally, there's this apparent lack of symmetry from one side to the other. But what's the training? The training is that even though there's this apparent lack of symmetry, there's still a place of steadiness that you do not depart from. And when you change the physical body like this through different bead positions on the fingers and the hands, each one will feel unique. When I do it, I'll feel the energies of the world like reconciling themselves. You know, sometimes it'll feel like there's almost like a big shear force coming from one side, and I don't worry about it. I just feel both sitting bones evenly and hold this evenly, and then it'll reconcile itself. It'll reconcile to this steadiness, this steady place of devotion. Then I'll change it to another place, and that's unique. So basically what I'm saying is, even if not only the entire external world is changing and moving and presenting itself to the place of your devotion in ways that have never happened before, also you can train to so that even if the frame, the postures of your own body are similarly perhaps asymmetrical or ever new because of all the various hand combinations and like that you do in this set of prayer or beadless prayer or rosary beads. Even if it's the frame of your own body, there's still this place of devotion to which you literally train to hold steadily. And then when you learn that, especially if you learn the way not to lean between right and left, then this can be turned, and it can be it's the same place if it's the place between too high or too low. It's just the place, the refuge, the place of rest that hasn't departed too far one direction or the other into suffering or so if you do something like watching the breath, right? I'm just going to watch the breath. Well, there's a place that if you've ever forced your breathing, you'll know what it's like to have labored breathing, right? But somehow, if you feel you're breathing in a labored way, you sense that there is a place between too much one way or too much to the other. That if you can just find that place, that is the sweet spot. That's the place of refuge. So similarly, once you become super acquainted with this idea of where the sweet spot is, and then you want to apply this toward perhaps watching the breath, you just know, it's just self-evident when, even as you watch the breath, if you watch it too much this way, it departs out into laboredness. But then there's a place that is just the sweet spot. And it may move, sometimes when I do it, it'll move wherever it goes, but at least because I've trained in this other way. And I'm just saying that it's evident where to look. Because you look in a different place, you literally feel it's almost that statement of just this much. You'll feel that like there's too much on one side and less on the other, or too much. It's hard to explain. But I'm just saying that there's a place where it's not labored, and you can learn the lesson of how to find that place here. And then you can turn it and apply it to watching the breath. So now the question is, well, what if somebody's attached to the flippin' world? How are they going to how are they going to have the straight gate simply as this. When off to the side is a big old automobile or something that they are attached to, because loving the treasures of the world in those external ways, being concerned with managing, with trying to rearrange those things, it makes you, it's like a malformed condition, because in a simple way you're not only here, but you're also concerned with all of that. And you really do need to refine the sense of where you are. And you do that through letting go, through releasing attachments to the external world. And so one way to do that is to establish yourself in devotion in this kind of way. And then you'll feel your preoccupation, your intention going out in some distant way, in such a way that it's not simply here anymore. But I'm saying that the center of this place and the center of and presentation of that new arrival, there's a center place for it all. And it's possible to steadily be here and feel it simply as just this much. Yes, there might be more on one side, but you keep your mind in the sweet spot, and doing that, it effectively keeps to the center of everything that's presented around you. And so this is a good way to practice. I also suggest practicing Tai Chi, because when you do Tai Chi, for example, the push hands, you'll be standing there in front of somebody and there's this exercise where they push on you. And if you are attached to the external world, when they push, it's just like moving a piece of furniture around, because you're going to be all in one piece, right? And that's simply because you're attached and unyielding to the externals. But the question I present to you now, brothers and sisters, is there a place of the heart? Is there a place that you can hold to and release the external? That's the exercise. So when you do Tai Chi, your center, I'm just saying you want your center to be clear. And so when you train in the push hands, someone will push here, and you give to those that ask of you. You yield. They want this, you give them that. You give them your coat. So you yield to that while staying right here, balanced and steady. You give them not only your coat, but you give them your cloak also. Pap! Now, Tai Chi seriously is a really great way to practice, because not only does your center get more refined. In the past, I would use the word center of gravity, but I realized that I did misspeak in those kind of occasions, because it's not just the center of gravity. I mean, it can be anywhere. It's that place of refuge where you look, where you place your mind, wherever it may be. So that's the center, and then the center can become clearer and clearer. And now check this out. If you're abiding in the place between opposites, literally between things, between those things which are on one side and those things which are on the other, in this place thinner than the razor's edge, this straight and narrow way or gate, straight gate if you will, just realize that the gate is not a thing. It's more like a space between things. So when you hold to this, it's not that you're attached to a thing. It's like you're just resting in the place between the presentations of life, between just this much on wherever it may be. In the past, though, perhaps you didn't have a way to train to steadily be in it. And I'm saying now is a starting point. Just sit and feel both sitting bones evenly. Just do that. And when you start to lean, you can correct the physical posture if you like, but another way to correct it is, like if I'm leaning to this side too much, maybe I'm attached too much to something on this side. And by letting go, by releasing, I can release to the place that is, it's the place where there's no attachment and there's no aversion. Do you see that? They often say, seek the place that is beyond attachment and aversion. Well, if I'm attached, I'm leaning, perhaps. Or if I'm averse to something, then I'm perhaps leaning in a different way. But I can release until I reach the place in which there is no attachment and no aversion. Use the physical body as a tool in this way and just surf it, man. I was thinking today when I was sitting in church, I was sitting in the Catholic Church, just sitting there. I was thinking, what a great sport it is, and how flippin' fun is this to actually be able to surf life without even having a surfboard. Because life was changing all around me, all these different elements and presentations and these varied invitations to forsake this greater part, to forsake this one good thing, and instead to love the things of the world more than this place of devotion, which is referred to as me in many of the traditions. I was thinking how fun it is, and I wasn't just thinking it, man, I was really enjoying the journey is what I'm trying to say. And so it is a really fun sport. You just got to learn how to, number one, set up the scale and set up the yoke. And I've done a few videos on it. I'd say check out the article on how to surf or skateboard without a board. And then I also did one in great detail of how to choose the points. Like if you're Catholic, for example, the Catholic Rosary, how to have the decades hand with its 5 mysteries and 5 decades represented in different places, and then the counting hand upon which you count while keeping the decade location steady, and through all these changes, simply abide in the midst of them in devotion. Well, I mean, how do you know that's devotion? Well, you're keeping to this. That's devotion. What if you keep to this for maybe a few seconds, then you go off and you do something else? You see, that's not devotion because you bailed on it. I'm just trying to say, if you set up this kind of scale, it gives you feedback on if you bail, when you bail, what conditions in this outer world invite a turn away or a bailing. And you learn, because you can manage your surfing of this place, you learn how to stay steadily in devotion. You train in this way enough, you'll let go of those external concerns, such as the new car or anything else that would keep you so widely concerned and preoccupied with the external world, so unsteadily going out into the world after one thing or another, that you could scarcely bring it back, bring it to this place where you can steadily stay in devotion. So you need you need to learn how to set up this scale. You need you need to learn how to surf without a surfboard, and to experience that it is pretty dang fun to do. And you can do it any time, any place, even if you're just sitting around the stupidest job at work or something. You think, this is crap, I'm bored, I just want to do something different. Well, man, you can literally set up a scale, you can surf it, whether you're in school, whether you're in the military, anytime, any place that it makes sense, that it's safe to do, then you can practice this. And so that's cool. So yes, I've talked about this in the past, but what's the new points that I'm giving to you today? Basically, I'm saying that if you feel too flighty, then you need to bring it back and plant yourself in this and set up this kind of a scale by, at first, simply feel both sitting bones evenly and don't lean. Secondly, if you feel like you're so concerned about the things of the world that you don't feel like you're all together in this place, then you need to learn to make your center clear. And you can do that by learning Tai Chi, so that no matter if a person pulls or pushes or introduces external considerations to the place of your abiding, in each example you learn that yes, you can turn. And in the turning, it's similar to the eye of the hurricane, that when it's well formed, it's just a place of peace and serenity and refuge right in the center of the raging storm of the world. You can literally establish a similar thing if you can turn the body in this way. It'll give you the idea of what that's like, of how your center can become clearer and clearer. So, and then do the washing machine, which is, hey man, it's like when you turn your waist this way. See how that is? But you're turning in such a way that all things are being thrown to the outside, and the one that turns is the one that rests steadily, ever steadily in the center. As all things, everything that can be thrown outwardly by the spinning moves outwardly, just like in a centrifuge. You throw a test tube of blood in the centrifuge, spin it, and it separates it out into understandable layers, but the part toward the center becomes clearer and clearer while the things are thrown to the outside. So you can do the training exercise of turning as I've described, or as like a Sufi mystic would do. You know, they will just spin, and similarly in the spinning, that which can be influenced by being spun in the world will be thrown to the outside, and that which is beyond the influence, beyond such influences, the one that spins, rests steadily in the center. And you learn that you rest steadily in the center while that which is outside of you moves and changes, even if it's part of the frame of your own body. So then with a clear center, then when you do this surfing and like that, you release the attachment to the external. Then you can abide more steadily in this place. And so that's the idea on that. In conclusion, I'd like to bring back my son, my newborn baby, and hey Dad, what's going on? Nothing much, son. I'm gonna try doing what you said you want me to do. Okay. I'm gonna spin around, bright eyes. Turn around, bright eyes. And he ascended to a very high spiritual level and departed from that which in the past had held him down in life. So much love. Please like and subscribe.